Welcome, everyone. This is episode number 77 of the Almost Blues Brothers podcast, part of the Blue Abroad podcast network and brought to you by Piota Health and Performance. I'm Joe. As usual, I'm always here. But today, unfortunately, with this impromptu fixture analysis episode, I think Dan, he's somewhere in Australia. Can't find him, can't contact him. I'm not too sure. Jules couldn't make it either. So I've got our good friend, the Pommy and Oz. Dan, joining us today for a little bit of fixture analysis. How are you, mate?
I am good, mate. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. This is new for us at the Almost Blues Brothers. So we've always only been on audio to this point, and you'll be seeing a lot more of this in 2023. We will be doing video, whether it's through a StreamYard platform like this, whether it's in a bit of a makeshift studio that I'm going to try and put together at my place with the boys. But there's going to be a lot more of this, a lot more faces next year in 2023. So it's good to get it kicked off. It is an impromptu episode. I saw the fixture come out yesterday. I got too excited, mate. I couldn't not speak about footy after a fixture drop. So I thought, why not? Let's do something. It's been a while, but and I do appreciate you joining me today to do this.
Well, I mean, yeah, we've just had a bit of a traumatic 4 hours. So, I mean, I was up. I had to do something to distract myself anyway.
Well, let's have a quick chat. So, obviously, it's Sunday. World Cup is well and truly in the absolute death of the World Cup. It's coming. Those latter stages in England. Unfortunately, today it looked like you're going to take it extra time, but Harry Kane just decides, like you said, pre-show, to go top bins when he probably should have just put it straight down the guts or replicated his first penalty. But how are you feeling?
Gutted. I mean, probably for this show, it's probably a good thing because I would have probably been a little bit worse for wear had England usurped it. It would have probably been a little bit more bubbly. I would have been, but I would have probably also been half cut. But no, it is what it is, and I suppose now my football focus comes straight to Carlton now.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because I think we've got a big year ahead of us. But that is a terrible way to get knocked out of a World Cup. It's not. I couldn't even imagine the fact that it was right there in their grasp to take to at least extra time. But it was a good tournament from England. I mean, you looked, to be fair, probably the most. If you look at the score lines of each of the matches, and I know maybe there's an argument against the competition that you played, but you're definitely the most dominant attacking team throughout the tournament till today, I would have thought. And you gave it a run, but unfortunately, I don't want to take the piss too much, but as England do,
Well, I mean, we're always the bridesmaid. We're never quite the bride. But I mean, if you told me at the start of the game we would have shut Mbappe up all game, I would have been fairly confident. I mean, I didn't see Mr. Killian much in 90 minutes, which was nice.
Not at all.
Shout out to Kyle Walker.
It was. Look, I watching the game, I actually thought, especially first half, I thought you were all over him. I thought you dominated. You had your chances. Hugo Lloris should be, I don't know if he is, but he should be man of the match. Some of the saves he pulled out, especially towards the end of that first half, were just phenomenal. Just unlucky in the end, mate. Unlucky.
I think they gave the man of the match to the best looking man in boxer short history in Olivier Giroud.
Fair enough.
I think it's purely for the boxer short commercial, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, that's World Cup news. I got nothing else to talk about. Italy didn't even make it in Australia. Been out for about a week now, so I'm just watching as a bystander these days. But let's get into the Blues. So this isn't going to be a typical Almost Blues Brothers ep. There's no edits. There's no intro music. There's none of this. It's just purely to get a video out because I was too excited and I had to talk about the Blues. Now, you've done a fixture analysis episode on your YouTube channel. Is that right, Pom?
I have indeed. I did a reaction as it broke. So I had no thought whatsoever. I just did verbal diarrhea, which is my specialty.
Well, that's what I'm going to be doing today because I haven't done any analysis on this. This is going to be pretty much a live reaction for me. So you've had a bit of a dry run. I'm sure you've got some even more analysis since it's dropped around interstate games and what you think about the difficulty of the fixture. So we'll get into that. But what are your thoughts? And if you haven't already, go check out Pommy's fixture analysis reaction video. His content on his channel at Pommy and Oz is top tier. You're growing substantially as well, mate. It's good. It's good to see the good to see the growth. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts overall before we get into the round by round?
Well, I mean, I think before this got released, I was fearing the worst. I thought, that Cowton may be stung on the fixtures. I thought usually the side that's 9 for 10th last year usually seems to get as if they've won the flag, and whatever they had last year, it's the opposite. But Champs Data has us as the 5th easiest fixtures, and I look at where the tough games are. What excites me about this fixture is I think Cowton need to learn to do a Geelong. Geelong build into the season. We kind of spent our energy really early, which is normal. Bank the credits. We're not a very good team, and we got excited. We need to now learn that maturity of building in. And you look at the fixtures, they're really tasty in the terms of we start with the 2 top sides, Richmond and Geelong. But then there's always like some break games there where Cowton can really put some learnings to work. And I like that benchmark of the reigning premiers and Richmond as a start, because I think that's a real good benchmark for Cowton to go, right, we've got to beat Richmond if we want to be in the 8. You've got to knock 2 teams out to get in the 8. That's Cowton's logic. We don't want to finish 8th. We want to finish in the crux of it. But then you've got Geelong and you see what they're about. So you're like, these are the best. Let's have a little benchmark. And then you go into 2 easier fixtures. So whatever you've learned from there, and it seems to mirror that throughout the year. And I think Cowton's run home as well. You want to hit the finals with a flourish, and genuinely teams do well. And you saw Collingwood last year. Do you know what I mean? They had a iffy start, but they finished well. And that's what Cowton needs to, I think, mirror. We need to mirror that. Finish well. Don't start well. Finish strong.
I've just had a look through the fixture as you were talking, and going through like the first few, and then especially the run home. I didn't realise our run home was as good on paper as what it actually looks from about round 18 onwards. So that is a positive. That is a positive. I think we only travel once, which is up to our absolute bogey stadium in Metricon in the second last round. But that's a decent run home, and I think that's probably the first time that I've looked at a fixture, especially in that last 6 to 7 weeks for a long time, where I thought that's going to give us a really, really good run home. Like last year was challenging. We had, the reigning premiers and Brisbane up in Brisbane and all that sort of thing. But this seems a very, very, I wouldn't say easy draw, but it seems to be a favourable draw based on where all the teams finished in 2022. But, start of last year, they said the same thing, didn't they? We had the easiest fixture in the comp, and then by the end of the season, when you racked and stacked, it was one of the hardest, right?
You've got to beat. I mean, one thing the AFL has taught us is that 18th can beat first on any given day. Like, it's all right us doing this and going, oh, that's a 4-pointer. It's a little bit different, when a team's been panned in the press the week before and the coach is on the chopping block, and suddenly they start playing as if they're the flag winners. So, I mean, it's easy to do. I mean, I'm never one to buy into easy and hard fixtures. I think we hear that danger game way too much as Cowton fans, but genuinely 17 danger games. Like last year, North Melbourne ran the top sides close, and then they'd go and play Adelaide at home and get kicked by 80. It's a stupid league. So it's hard to say now, because one of them teams, everyone watching at home, who have probably said, oh, it's guaranteed 4 points for Cowton. Guaranteed one of them sides will be fighting for the 8, and they'll totally buck the trend.
And even if they're not fighting for the 8, we know that we're going to drop a game. We just know. Like, and it's not just a Carlton thing. Like, it happens to every side every year. We probably get caught up in the Carlton bubble and the emotions of, how could we drop 4 points to Adelaide? How could we drop 4 points to North? How could we drop 4 points here and there? But the reality is, like you said, with this competition as close as what it is, any side can show up on any day, and you will drop a game that you probably think that's going to cost us. It's more so how you bounce back. And I think the last few years where we've dropped, 4 points to Adelaide, for instance, last year, which was crucial at the point of the year that it was, you just would have hoped that of the remaining 3 games, we would pull one out of the hat and get that 4 points back, but we haven't. So for me, it's more so not about looking at a North and going, that is which we're going to do, but it's not locking in 4 points. They could easily beat us on any given day, and we've seen that in the past. But can we bounce back against the bigger sides next year? Can we bounce back and make a statement the week after, getting maybe a 4 or 5 goal loss to a team we shouldn't have lost to, and then coming out and winning by 40, 50 points against a team that we should be able to take it to. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. How do you see the overall double headers? So I think we've got the Giants twice, we've got North twice, the Eagles, the Saints, the Pies, and the D's. Have I got that right?
Yeah, we got Pies, Suns, GWS, Melbourne, St Kilda, Eagles twice this year.
Yep.
Which I kind of really like, because Melbourne are a team that even when we were horrendous, we always seem to stack up against pretty healthily. So that's a positive. GWS are another side that genuinely apart from 2018, but genuinely we seem to give it a go even when we're not playing well. And then you've got them games that, with the Banana Skins, Gold Coast, like you mentioned at the start, Metricon, for some reason, Carlton can't play there. So a chance to right a wrong. We like travelling to Perth. And then you've got Pies, who literally, even when Carlton are rubbish, 2018 Carlton gave Pies a go. So they're the games that they're favourable for Carlton, because that there's reasons for them. And then St Kilda under Ross, you'd imagine Voss's game plan should stack up against a Ross-led Saints.
I like the fact that of our double headers, we've got a mix, like you said, a mixture of sides that showed in 2022 that they are super, super competitive. We've got the Suns obviously up there that, I'm hoping we can see a Metricon win. That's a little bit more easily done than in previous years. It just seems like a good balance. It's not like we've got double headers against all top 8 sides, or we've got double headers against all bottom 6 or bottom 8 sides where you're going, well, fuck, like, if we don't make it, then we've got no excuses. Like, it's a really good mix, and it's going to be a great test for the boys, I think, across the year, to be able to navigate to interstate games that typically we haven't been able to get up for. Obviously, the other one, which, if you look at the first 5 rounds, and this is a video that I released on Twitter the other day, which is true, we are absolutely in the spotlight from early on. Absolutely in the spotlight of every single AFL fan. So we've got the season opener on the Thursday, on 16th of March. We've got a game against the reigning premiers the following Thursday against Geelong. The Giants up at Giant Stadium gives us a little break from the spotlight, but then we've got Good Friday footy against North, which is a massive fixture. Like that there for us is a great one to lock in. If we can make that slot our own, bring in the numbers that the Dogs obviously weren't able to bring in against North, whether it be at the ground or on tally. Like that's a marquee fixture that we'll have for good. And the fifth one in round 5 against the Crows on a Thursday to open gather round. That there is another game that I look at to go, they've had it over us at Adelaide Oval for the last 3, 4, 5 years, even when we've probably theoretically been better than what they are. So we are going to that's 3 Thursday night games and a Good Friday game within the first 4 weeks. We're going to be thrust into that blockbuster spotlight, and we're going to have to stand up, man. We're going to have to stand up. These boys will feel that pressure.
I mean, they've got to be subjected to it, haven't they? I mean, at the end of the day, this rebuild is pointless if we're going to fold under pressure, because when that plan, however it was formed, whether you think it was a good plan or a bad plan, the end of the plan would have been one of the top clubs in the country. Hence, you're going to be under the microscope. And we saw Melbourne when they won the flag. The next year, the press came for them every time something went wrong. Geelong will be in that spotlight this year. Carlton are always going to be in the spotlight. So now we've got them primetime games. There's no excuse. And Voss talks about the ceiling. They're going to literally come into a fire in the first 5 rounds, because that even though Voss had a good year last year, he's going to be one of the coaches that's going to be under the microscope, that if he starts 0-2, they're going to start asking the questions. And especially if Ross goes 2-0 with St Kilda, he was the one heavily linked with Carlton. And you can see the articles already. Do you know what I mean? Oh, Saints are flying. Did Carlton make a mistake? The pressure will come. And what better time to face pressure than opening pretty much every round for the first 5 weeks? It's it's written in the stars, isn't it, for Carlton? They're going to have to do it, and they say they're a big team. They've now got to prove it on the big stage.
You're absolutely right, and it's actually not a bad topic to bring up because it's something that I've thought about over the off season about how I'd feel. But I'll get your thoughts first. So let's say theoretically, just before we go through this fixture round by round and what we think. Theoretically, let's say, so the reality was that Vossi had this club at 4-7 after the bye last year, which was the same record that Teague had this club at going into the bye the year prior. Theoretically, and I'm not saying this is going to happen at all, but it is a possibility, right? Say we do start 4-7. Where does that put Voss and this coaching group? Where does that put the mentality of this club backing in this coaching group that's still relatively new? They've only just done their first full preseason with this group. What would your stance be on? I guess I wouldn't say a review, but what would your stance be on backing in the coaches for another year without any noise, or versus another reshift?
Well, I think the back half of the year this year is, on paper at this stage, easier. So I think it's kind of flipped from last year. I think playing these top sides early is going to give us a good indicator. I'd be disappointed if we were 4-7 by that round. Obviously, I think a lot would come into how was the performance. If it's like the Collingwood style wins and losses where it's taken away at the death and things like that, I'd probably say, well, maybe it's just trying to iron that next layer, because I think Voss has been open. There is a layer that needs to be unlocked for us to compete, and I think we saw that the back half of last year. Injuries have got to be taken into account, but I mean, all being fit, if everyone is fit apart from the obvious ones like Cunners, I would be expecting Carlton to be flipping that and be looking at 7-4 as the bear, as the pass mark, and really go in there. Carlton are going to lose games opening. I don't think we'll have anywhere close to the start we had last year, but that's a good thing. I want, like I said at the start of the video, I want to see Voss structure the side as if they're a flag-winning side. And you look at Geelong, they build into it. Melbourne built into it the year they won it. And then last year, you saw what happened with Melbourne. They killed a lot of steam to get, what was it, like 10-0? And then the wheels started to fall off. I want to see Carlton to really be structured and working on something to that bye, because some of the double-up games come at perfect times. It's like an 8-week break. So if you do drop that one, you've got one thing I'll give Voss, second time round against teams, he seemed to have learned. And genuinely speaking, he kind of worked out how to beat them. So that's what I'm expecting from Voss. I'll reserve judgment, but it's all on performance for me. I want to see we've got the tools to compete. And I think we've got the perfect opportunity in the first 5 rounds. I think you'll know where we finish after round 5. I think you'll be able to see quite clearly, because you're playing all the sides almost in every 4th bracket, 1-4, 5-8. You kind of play them all. So we kind of know where we sit. And then it's going to be from there, what does Voss add?
It's a fair view. I ask it just because I've seen on Twitter, a few throwing that hypothetical around, is the pressure cooker going to come to Voss if this doesn't go as we expect? And for me, I said at the start of this whole reset, when this coaching group came in, we now have and especially now that we've got a 5-year plan, right, where it's been set out for us to all see what we want in this next 5-10 years. I think regardless of, we'll be absolutely gutted if it doesn't go, if we're not going into the bye with a positive record. But at the end of the day, we can't just keep churning through coaches. If there's going to be questions asked, if it goes the way that we don't want it to go, the questions need to be asked of the players at this point, because how many coaches can you churn through before you sort of go, well, hold on, like, who's not getting the most out of this group? Is it the coaches or is it the players themselves? So, and look, this is all hypothetical. I truly believe, and we've spoken about this on the Blue Broad show last week briefly. I think we're both in the camp of, I feel really calm going into next season. I don't feel like There's so much anticipation and nerves and build up and what are we going to do? I feel like we all know what we're capable of doing now and what we should be doing. So I don't think by any means that this hypothetical is going to come to fruition. I think we're going to be an absolute force to reckon with week in, week out next year. But in the case that maybe it goes a little bit haywire, maybe there's the injuries again, I don't think you can point a finger at Voss. The pressure, the media will question him. I don't think as fans we should question him and the coaching group. That's just my opinion. I think you need more time than what is it? I think he's just ticked over the 12-month mark now. So, how much time do you give someone before you ask questions on whether or not they've got this group under a hold?
I'll start asking questions with, like, when I saw with Teague, when the pressure comes, you saw Teague resort to panic football. When you saw him do the same things week out, when pressure started to come, same players came back in the side, same ball movement. You could see he had a safety blanket. I want to see when the pressure comes with Voss doesn't roll the dice and go, right, okay, let's go route one football, let's get it safe. I want him to be really being like Claudio Ranieri. I want him to be tinkering and going, no, this is the way I play football. I will die by my sword. I don't want to see him panic in press conferences and do what coaches do of the past, where they start giving us cliche words and, oh, we expected this, and it's all part of the greater good.
Which I think we saw, right? Even in that Melbourne loss and that Collingwood loss, they're the two that stand out for me. Like, we could have easily laid down and gone, we are not winning either of these games. Like, we had our chance. We dropped the 4 points against Adelaide. Pack it up, boys. Off we go to our off-season trips. But you saw the genuine hunger and desire to take it to a reigning premier. And then the Collingwood game, it was what it was. Like, we had that in our grasp. That, I don't know how we choked that, but we actually came out in that third quarter and went, we're not letting this slip. Unfortunately, by the way, the footy gods for Collingwood in 2022, they just got it done like they always did, and that came undone for them in the end. But, I don't think we've seen that from Voss yet. And I would be very, 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 very surprised if he did go into his shell. He just doesn't seem the type to put the cue in the rack and go, let's just stem the bleeding. I don't think we saw that ever, to be honest, in 2022, which was refreshing. So it's good discussion. It's going to be very, very interesting. And with that, let's get into this round by round. So obviously round one, Thursday, 16th of March, 2023. It's an away game, but it's at the MCG against Richmond. Season opener. How do you see it, Pom? For me, that's a win. We broke the duck in 2022. This is now, you pencil this in as a win.
It has to be one of the, if you do a tick system, red loss, yellow chance, green guaranteed, you'd say it'd be that yellowy green colour, wouldn't you? I mean, it's all to play for. Starting 1-0, we saw the momentum, and it's going to be tough because I think Richmond are infinitely better than last year. But I think it's a great time to play them. We've been victims of buying new players, and it takes a few games for them to learn the style. So I don't think Taranto and Hopper are going to be all that and a bag of chips round one. So, yeah, they've got to go into that with the mentality of we're favourites, and let's make it 2 in a row against these mob.
It's amazing that Richmond were able to restructure that midfield so quickly, though. Like, I'm very, very impressed with their off-season. I think they'll bounce back into top 6, top 4 contention pretty quickly with the way that midfield's structured. And, they've still got Jack Rewalt up there for another year helping out Tom Lynch. But they're going to be a force. I do agree, though. I think early on, it's going to take time for them to gel in that system. It's a very, very different system to what they played at GWS. And, hopefully we can get them early and get out of the way, because we're only playing once next year, which means it's going to be a long, long, long 12 months if we can't get that win in round one.
And I want a good start. I don't want what we've seen like the last 4 years, Carlton claw it back and happen to win like last year. I want to see us saying, nah, we're the force now. We're the big dogs, not you.
And I think that's right. Like, you want to send a message early to the comp to go, we're not the team that you're going to be able to get on top of. We're going to come out firing. We're going to hold the lead. And this is what we sort of spoke about on the podcast last year. It was good that we were able to come back at teams. It was good that we were able to come out of the blocks firing. But regardless, it always felt like we're on a bit of a seesaw where, like, if we went up early, you knew that the other team was going to come back. If they were up early, we knew that we were going to come back at some stage. I'm with you. I think if this is our chance to go that step further that Voss has always been talking about, add another layer to go, we're going to come out of the blocks. We're going to put a 4-5 goal lead on you, and you're not going to get close to us for the next 3 quarters. We're going to make it really, really hard for you to stay in this game. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be You said after round 5, you'll see where we're going to be at. I think you're going to see after that 120 minutes against the Tigers, I think you're going to see what sort of team we're going to be for 2023. So I'm still penciling that in as a win. Now, then we got another big test, which is the Cats in round 2. They're going to be interesting. Everyone writes off the Cats every year. I wrote them off last year. I think most people wrote them off last year. It's what the whole running joke was, right? I'm not writing them off this year. I've refused to do it because every time I've done it, I've been wrong. I can't see us winning this game based on how they played in that grand final. I can't see us winning this game based on the way that team is structured and how well drilled they are. But it's another good test. If we can get the 4 points, so be it. But if we're being realistic, which I'm going to try and do here, unfortunately, this is probably a loss on the big stage.
It's tough, and I think it's a great opportunity, though. Voss has talked about outside run. We know that's the benchmark. No one can do it to Geelong, but that is their benchmark, getting it out wide and spreading them. So we're going to really see if Voss's acquisitions with Austin were worth what he did, because they've been our big acquisitions, Hollands and Mr. Akers, and to improve that two-way width running. So I'm looking forward to this one, because this is the game where we're going to see, right, you've talked about it, now you're going to have to execute it. So I think it's going to be tough. I think it's the best time to play the Premiers, though, first 3 rounds, the pressure on them. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's looking at them. So they'll be vulnerable, but a vulnerable Geelong is still probably better than 16 sides in the AFL. So it's going to be tough. But
well, and especially if you made the point before, and they did it last year, where they really want to manage their season, right? They know they've got an aging list. They do need to manage it going into the back half of the year. So they tend to start a little bit slower. So it could be the perfect time to get them. And I mean, if we got 4 points there and we start 2-0, even if it's 1-1, whatever it is, it's still a better start than the majority of other years that we've had to watch this club. So it is a big game. Those first 2 games are big to set up our season. You definitely don't want to be 0-2. Like 0-2 is like, all right, they're 2 good clubs, but we've got some work to do now. And even if it is, you look at the following 3 rounds, right? You got the Giants in Sydney, you've got North Melbourne on Good Friday, and then you've got Adelaide Oval. They're 3 games that should be wins, Pom. Like if we're a club that are going to take that next step, all 3 of those clubs are bottom 6. Bottom 7, maybe bottom 8 at best sides. And that's not us. That's just not us anymore. We should be striving for top 6. And early on in the season, these are the games that you've got to bank points.
One of them games as well, we have to see a side of Carlton we've never seen, in my opinion, where we punish a side. Where you look at them fixtures and you look at the opposition's fixtures at that point, morale's going to be low. But they're going to have a tough start, some of them sides. So Carlton have got to go in there, and I want to see that ruthless edge. And I think that's something that maybe it's a mental deficiency, because they've been the victims for years, and maybe there's a little bit of fragility there of handing out punishment. I'm hoping to see in one of them rounds there, Carlton come out and they have a Hawthorn quarter, but they have a Hawthorn quarter for 3 quarters, and they really destroy a side. Everyone kicks a snag. Everyone's lining up. It's almost a training drill. And they come off the ground with an 80, 90-point win. And then, in my opinion, they've done everything they possibly can on a football field other than play finals, where they've actually punished a side and taken the initiative. Because last year, when we played these crap sides, it was comfortable, but it was workability comfortable. I want to see a game where the boys aren't sweating and they're coming off the field as if they've just had a training exercise.
Yeah. Especially, I think it was North and Adelaide. We played them back-to-back early in the season. And we won both those games, I think, by 60+. But, I just remember going into halftime and it was like a 1 or 2 goal lead. And it's like, well, we've obviously outplayed them. You could see it. We've outclassed them across the ground. We'd outplayed them, but we just had those lapses still where we let in 1 or 2. And we had to fight back to build another 1 or 2 goal lead again. And then after halftime, we obviously put them away. But I'm with you. It's been a very, very, very long time since. I think the last time I remember a game like that, in all honesty, it's a long time ago, but correct me if I'm wrong, there was a game in, I think, 2011 or 2012 against Richmond, and we belted them by 103 points at the MCG. Judd kicked a goal streaming out of the centre clearance from the centre square. That day there is the last time I remember a game where we put a side away. Like, start to finish, they didn't even get close. So if we're talking 10 years in between drinks for a game where we just sit back and relax, we don't have to worry about anything, it's time. It's absolutely time. And if it's not one of North, Adelaide, or the Giants, the two games that we've got after are St Kilda and West Coast in round 6 and 7. Now, St Kilda, on paper, you'd go, yep, they're probably going to bounce back. Ross is there, better system. No Max King. They won't have Max King, who has been an absolute thorn in our side since he was drafted by that club. I think that's a game also where it's a bogey side traditionally for us, not with what's going to be running out on the park for them. Like, they didn't really add too much quality in the offseason. They got some great draftees, mind you. I thought they had a terrific draft. But, you know, it's going to take them time to gel under Ross's system. It's going to take them time to get used to the fact they don't have their spearhead up forward, kicking 4-5 or having 7 or 8 shots on goal a game for them. I think that's a game that we should honestly be able to put them to the sword. And the Eagles, the week after over at Optus, they're not going to get any better. They're in for more hurt before they get any better, based on how they finished last year. So I don't know. I think first 6-7 rounds, we're looking at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 wins based on the opposition there.
Yeah, in my video, I gave the account that Carlton could potentially finish 0-2, and did say that I've mentally prepared for that if that happens, because I think the next fixtures after that, Carlton have more than enough opportunity to take some learnings out of that game and go, right, round 8 is the tough one from here. That's the game where you'd probably say you're a final side, but you might not be the flag winners. But they've got that 5-week block to put some credits in the bank to work on it. And I think the St Kilda game is a really interesting one, because I think the one question mark I have with Voss is when you've got a team that's willing to stand up and be structured, which Ross oozes with his sides. And we assume he's going to be like that coach again, the same type of Ross that we know, hard at the ball, don't back down, stick to your system, be boring into consistency. I'm excited about that game because that's where we're going to see the question mark on Voss. Is he tactically astute, which a lot of people criticised last year? Is he tactically savvy in-game? He's tactically savvy pre-game. Is he willing? And that's where you're going to have to, because St Kilda are going to stifle Carlton, and that's going to be what they're looking for. So yeah. I love that game. And then obviously West Coast Eagles, no disrespect to them, but I think they're garbage. And I think they had a horrific off-season. So I think they're a lot worse, and they're going to be in a big rebuild. So that's when the shackles get released. They're going to have that tough, gritty game, St Kilda. Then I expect to see the shackles come off and they have a week out and go, God, this is good. We can play football again.
Yeah, and I think it's great analysis, because even for whatever reason, whenever the Saints tend to come up against us, they do play. And it's going to be even more so with Ross at the helm, right? But for whatever reason, every time the Saints come up against us, they play this ruthless footy around the contest, even though they've got no right to be doing it. They did it last year against us, and they pantsed us around clearances, around contested footy. They pantsed us on the outside. Like, for whatever reason, that's a fixture that they look at as a club, and they go, this is a side that we know that we can beat. And they just get confidence from it. So you're right, even without a Max King there, it's still going to be a tough fixture for us. But that's one that we've got to just break the duck of again. We can't just keep sitting here going, oh, well, they were a bogey side. Like, fuck that. It's not an excuse anymore, unfortunately.
If we're serious as a fan base as well, we have to get out of that mentality of we were shit against this side, because newsflash, last 10 years, we've technically been shit against everyone. So, yeah, I mean, exactly. If we look historically, we're rubbish, but we've got to get into a championsman spirit that all 17 sides we have to beat. We have to beat them if we're going to win a flag. You can't just say, oh, we'll drop St Kilda every year. So I'm with you. It's having a fighting spirit.
Yeah, I agree. And it's that 5 weeks is a good block. The Giants, North, Adelaide, Saints, and West Coast. We travel 3 times, but they're against sides that should be beatable, because then after that, we've got a 5-week block that's going to be the real test, right? We've got the Lions at Marvel in round 8. We've got the Dogs at Marvel in round 9. We've got the Pies in the grudge match in round 10, which we are going to be absolutely. I think by the time we get to by the time that game rolls around, it's enough time for us to get over what happened in round 23, but it's also just the perfect amount of time to go, we've got our season rolling. You're not getting past us today. and then 2 big tests against the Swans at the SCG in round 11 and the D's in round 12 on a Friday night at the MCG. So what do you think of that 5-block game? I mean, I'm looking at that going, if we can come out of that 2 and 3, it's probably pass mark at this stage. If it's 3 and 2, then we've done our job.
I think it's super exciting. I touched on this in my video that the best time to have your hardest block is with 2 easier teams and then the bye, because they're going to be able to debrief and have a 2-week playing block with a week off where they're going to be like, right, if we're 2 and 3, if we're 1 and 4, this is where we came unstuck. This is what we need to solidify in the next 10 weeks for when we play one of these sides in a final. But what a test, because they should be fired up. The game plan should be implemented by then. Anything they've added, which you suspect 2 or 3 things are going to be added this year, it should be all singing and dancing at that stage. It should be humming. And what a 5-week block. Because if you suddenly come in that 4 and 1, you're like, well, hang about. We've probably knocked 4 of the 5 of the 8 here. So we're 50% of the finals complete. We can beat any of these sides. So I love it. I think the away games as well for them top sides are favourable for me. I think the favourable. I think the SCG. I don't think Carlton played that ground too badly either. I think that they like that ground. The fan base in New South Wales is technically a home game for us as well. They're mental, like the WA guys. So I really like that 5-week block, because in your mind, you've got 8 points coming up, then the bye. So if we can snag 3 and 2, 4 and 1, dare to dream. If we go 5 and 0, we're probably, it's flag time, isn't it,
mate? If we go 5 and 0, you're gonna see something different. If you thought the lid came off last year, my God, going into that 5-week, coming out of that 5-week block, that'd be ridiculous. But of those 5 teams, like we got Brisbane right at Marvel, so it's the return leg from that Gabba game last year, which was just a debacle. We've got the Dogs, who we beat last year. We've got the Pies, who we should have beat both times last year. We've got the Swans, who we beat last year. I've got the D's, who, again, up until the last 11 seconds and a bit of Cozzy Pickett magic, we had them on toast. So these are still sides, probably other than Brisbane, where even as bad as we've been, we've seen wins against these sides in this last 10 years. Like, to your point, we've been shit for so long, and there's so many sides you look at with a bit of PTSD going, oh, but remember this game, remember that game from 4 or 5 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Of those 5 sides, we've always been very, very competitive against the 5 of them, other than Brisbane. So for me, the one that I look at in that 5 weeks is Brisbane. It's here. It's at Marvel. It's on our home deck. They're going to be a much better side again next year based on their off-season acquisitions. I think they're going to be extremely hard to beat. But that's a side where you go, we got the monkey off the back against Richmond. We did it against Sydney. We did it against Fremantle down here, and we did it convincingly. Like, that's a side next year that you pencil in and go, that's a game where if you beat them, you can beat anyone. Absolutely anyone. And it's just about consistency from there. So that's a fantastic 5 weeks. And then we've got 2 weeks heading into the bye after that. We've got the Dons in round 13 on a Sunday. Oh, actually, no. This is they've got Sunday, 7:15. Is that the night before Queen's birthday, I'm assuming?
I think so, yeah. It's a great time, though. Sunday night footy. I'm a big
interesting
fan.
Fixture. I don't mind it. You can get out on the piss afterwards. It's good. And then the following Sunday, heading into the bye, round 14, against the Suns at the G, which is another interesting one. So someone asked yesterday on Twitter, why do the Suns play us at the G? And I think it's because the Suns have to play a certain amount of games. I think it's 1 game a year, at least at the MCG. And it was the Pies in 2022 and I think Richmond in 2021 that had them. So I guess it's just our time to host them.
I think it's the perfect ground as well, because like the last 5 fixtures, we've got the Lions and Dogs at Marvel, and I think that favours Carlton with the way that Voss likes the ball movement. I think the Marvel just helps us. Here, I think the weakness of Gold Coast is width. So the G, that extra width, the partisan atmosphere that is happening in the G, I think it intimidates them a little bit. I like that there. I feel more safer playing them there. I know people will say round 2, Pommy, 2018, Tom Lynch, but there's no Tom Lynch at the Suns. There's no Tom Lynch. We should be there looking to put these guys to the sword. And obviously then Essendon, do you know what I mean? Even when Carlton had people like Cam Paulson playing for him. We still gave them a run for the money, and there's no Cam Paulson there now. That these guys are professional all-stars, and this should be a game. That's one of them games where I want Carlton to dominate going into the bye, particularly with them last 5 weeks. If they are 2-3, that's where you come back with a bang and you say, nah, know what? It's been a bit of a bad couple of 5 weeks. We're back now. This is it. And then that bye, I think it's the perfect bye because you've had that 5 weeks. These 2 games here where will be favourites. They've got loads to learn in that bye then. They've got that 5-week block fresh in their ears for the run home. So I think it's a perfect fixture. Like whoever did this fixture at AFL, I complain all the time. Like must have been a Carlton fan. Well done.
Agree. I tend to agree. So going into the bye, I've got us, and I had us at 2 and 3 in that 5-week block, but I've got us, if we beat the teams we should beat, maybe drop a game here and there against, the better sides and take a couple. I've got us at 10 and 4, and we were 10 and 4 this year, right? So it's not unrealistic when you think about it. It's probably as fair a fixture as what we had in that first 14 weeks last year. So going into the bye, if we're 10 and 4, 9 and 5, fine. If it's 8 and 6, you probably you'll take it because you're in the positive, but it's just going to be a bit of a slog in the back half of the year. So as long as as we've banked, I think as long as we've banked about 8 wins to that point, I'd be content. Any more than that, and we've done our job from what I can see there. Remember, this is my live reaction, right? So I haven't seen this until this point. So I'm trying to put the pieces together as we go. But 8 plus wins from there, you're content, I would say.
Oh, yeah. I think if we can get where you originally said 10. I think that's the magical number for the Blues. I think if we can be at that 10 situation, we're laughing, aren't we? Because that gives you so much margin.
What we have to remember as well, right, is there's that extra round this year, which means we need an extra win on top of the extra win that we needed last year. Theoretically, right? So to make the 8, I don't know if you've done the math on it or the analytics, but I'm assuming that with an extra round that everyone's playing, you need, rather than 13 wins, you'll need to bank 14 wins to play finals.
Yeah, I think mentally, Carlton have got to look at the 14.5 mark.
Yeah.
Like in my video, I think I had 11 wins at this stage is the dream. 10 is the par to win the thing, because I think then it just gives Carlton so much margin for error back half. And then that rotation I want to see in that second half. I'd love to be in a position where we can rotate our fringe players, start giving them a little bit more game time, getting them primed for finals. If there is these knocks like Harry, you can say, take the week off, kid. Do you know what I mean? Get yourself perfect. Don't be 50%, be perfect.
Yeah.
And yes, and that's what 10, 11 wins gives you that margin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of that first 14 games, just before we look at the back half of the year, I've just counted. We have 8 Thursday or Friday night games. That's a team. That's a team that the AFL are looking at going, this is a team that runs the show. That's all I look at. All right, so we come out of the bye and we've got the Hawks straight up at the G, which you'd think that they're in for, I thought last year they were probably going to fall off pretty quickly, but they actually started with a bit of a bang and they were competitive for a while. But I think at this stage of the season for the Hawks, they should be easy pickings with the list that they've got. And then a test against Fremantle over in Perth and hosting Port Adelaide after that at Marvel. So that 3 weeks after the bye, I'd be looking at that at least at 2 and 1 with one of those big wins that we're talking about against the Hawks as a percentage booster coming out of the break.
Oh, 100%. And the Fremantle game is the exciting one, isn't it? That is technically the home game. Like Carlton, even though we're interstate, for some reason in Perth, you almost feel safer at Perth than you do at the G. It's one of them games where the boys will perform. And I don't know if that's something to do with the crowd. I don't know if that's something to do with Cripps and it's his home area and maybe that inspires the boys. But if we can go 3-0 there, like technically with the start, you're on 13 wins at that point. And I'd imagine Voss has got that as a dream scenario in his head because suddenly then you're in finals. Like you are 1 foot in the finals. You've now got all the safety nets for blips, for mistakes. The pressure is literally evaporated. So that is 3 winnable games. 3 games there that Carlton shouldn't have any doubt in we play our best of our abilities, we put these three sides away.
Tend to agree. I think, and we've shown that we can beat Fremantle. I think Fremantle's the one of those three in the Hawks, Freo, and Port that you probably look at and go, well, they're the obvious danger in that 3-week block. But we have proven, other than this year when we travelled to Perth, that we can beat them over there. Like they are a side that we can take to the absolute limit, regardless of how good they're going at that stage. I've got Freo pretty high up in calculations next year. I'm not going to lie. Like I think they're going to be a side that's going to be hard to beat. But you know, it's not a side that we have typically shied away from. So, you know, why couldn't it be 3-0? If it is 2-1 at worst case, it's still where you want to be. Probably 12 wins going into round 19 and 20, where we've got the Eagles on our home deck at Marvel and then Collingwood the week after. I think regardless, as long as you've got 13 wins would be ideal, but even if it's 12 and then you take the Eagles at Marvel, absolutely. You should not be losing to the Eagles at all. And then, you know, Collingwood, if we're 13 wins going into round 20 and we go, we need one more win for finals, right? Theoretically, at 14 wins, it's locked in. Then you look at Collingwood in round 20, and it's almost like it'd almost be poetic to go, well, they kicked us out last year. If we beat them here at round 20 with 4 rounds to go, we're in. I think we'll be ready and raring to make that step. So I think by round 20, we've probably got those 14 wins banked. And then it's a good run home. You got the Saints round 21. You got Melbourne at round 22. The Suns up at Metricon at round 23, and we finish off with another relatively easy one, whose season would be probably finished well and truly by that stage in the Giants at round 24. So, you know, it's a very, very good run home. We've got a couple of tests in there, but as long as we've set ourselves up by that bye round, I can't see why we can't win 16, 17 games next year. I really can't.
I think 16 has to be the minimum expectation for the boys. I think I was quite firm. I always had them 8th or 6th last year, and I said that the next logical step then is 4th. I think they've got to go into it as if they finished 8th. I don't think they can go into the season thinking we miss finals. I think if you readjust whatever the plan was, you're screwed. I think they've just got to say, look, Dogs didn't deserve to be 8th. We did. We're 8th mentally, and it's been 4. So for me, 16 is the bare minimum requirement for these lads, and that should be literally what they're aspiring to do. And like we said, potentially, if they're a 10 at the bye, it's all set up, isn't it? You literally then can start thinking, by Collingwood, we could be top 4, and it's almost cemented. We need 2 from the last games, and that's what Carlton need to go. We need to structure now. This is exciting. Usually we're talking shit. I hope we don't finish 18th. Now we're talking about structuring a charge for finals.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've just done the calcs on those last few games. I've just given us, I've basically split, other than the Collingwood game, I've split everything else 1-1 in our double headers, other than Collingwood, the Suns, the Giants, and I've given us, and the Eagles. I've given us 1-1 against the Saints, the D's, and there was another one. Can't remember. But basically, even if we do split a couple of those head-to-head, like double headers, I've got us at 7 losses. That gives us 16 wins in a 23 game fixture. So I think at 16 wins, I'm happy, man. Like that's almost definite top 6, you'd think, and probably if you can scrape another one, pushing top 4. And if we can get there, win a final, and go on from there, there's no ceiling for us next year. And that's what these boys need to actually really, really, truly believe, is that this isn't about, for me, it's not about a process anymore. We don't have to tick boxes. We don't have to go, oh, let's just make finals now and let's get a finals win. No, fuck that. Like, let's finish as high as we possibly can. Let's bank as many wins as we possibly can, and let's go on with it. If we can win a final, 2 finals, 3, who cares? Once you're there, you're a chance. Like, you are an absolute chance once you're there. If we don't, I said it to you on BA the other week, if we don't make finals next year, Pom, it's never, ever going to happen, because this list is ready. Like, on paper, it's ready. Mentality, they're ready. They've had those experiences that we talk about in the close losses and in the big games and the pressure and all of that. If they can't put it together next year, forget about it. Podcast is done. But I think Tez already said Blue Abroad's done. We're done. Like, we're absolutely done.
If we don't make finals, and it doesn't dare thinking about in my mind, but if it does, there's going to be serious ramifications. There has to be, because we've asked for respect from the AFL, and I think I've banged the drum saying, don't ask for respect, just take it. All the pundits now have us as the top 4, top 6. All the opposition now are starting to take Carlton seriously. Gone are the days of Ken Hinckley saying, oh, we got 30 points up at half time and I started resting Charlie Dixon because Carlton were cooked. Like, teams now know we're a proper side. So it's all there for the taking. And I agree with you. I think Vossi's brand stacks up in the finals. So I think mentally for these boys, I think there's a lot of show ponies in this side as well that are really going to come out for finals. I think Cripper, Kerner, these are the type of guys that they're built for finals. You know, Charlie's already got his celebration in his mind when he kicks a winner in a final. You know, he probably practices that as we speak. So I'm with you. And for me, it's double chance this year. Give yourselves the maximum exposure in finals. That should be the challenge, saying, look, we missed out last year, so we need another one. We need 2 chances. So if we do lose one, at least we get the next week so we can really maximize that finals experience. Mate, I'm bullish. Honestly, I'm with you. We said it at the start. I'm looking at this fixture. You could have given me Melbourne twice, Geelong twice, Brisbane twice. I wouldn't have given a shit. I just genuinely believe this side has proven enough to me on the back of last year with all the injuries and how they tried to finish 18th almost at times, that they went out on percentage. They went out on percentage. So we've seen their worst is now 9th. That excites me. Like that excites me. So they've got to do it. And if they don't do it, honestly, my message to the boys, if you don't make finals, all of you retire now.
It's true. It's how it feels. It's how it feels. And I'm with you. I think they're ready. And everyone says we haven't had the finals experience. Like, unless you were at those last 2 weeks as a supporter, you wouldn't understand the pressure that we could feel. Or even if you were just watching it as a supporter, right, on telly, whatever it is. As a fan of that club, of this club in the last 2 weeks of this year, that's as close to finals experience as you can get. So it's almost simulated experience in those moments where you go, all right, we didn't get there, we didn't get the exposure that we needed, but mate, that was if not the real thing, as close as you can get to pressure moments, to learning from your mistakes when the pressure cooker really comes on, and the big crowds, loud, like we've had that now. We can't use, we've never played, Cripps has never played finals, but he's a Brownlow medalist. Wrong. Like those last 2 weeks are as pressure cooker as it ever gets for a team, because everything was on the line. They were 2 elimination finals against big clubs in big stadiums with big crowds. Like you cannot get any closer to the real thing than that.
I spoke to Caden last week in an interview, and he was saying that when I was saying I've never experienced finals football, he was like, go back and watch the last 10 minutes of the 4th against us. He was like, what you experienced in that 10 minutes is what finals is. He was like, that is identical. Crowd noise, how the ball is moved, that is it. So I agree with you. And I think as well, people slag off Carlton's back end of the year. But I look at Carlton and Bolton's era. What did you need to be good? Well, the answer was we needed a whole new fucking team, didn't we? Yeah. You look at Teague. What did you need? Well, you needed someone who could coach. Now you can actually identify every loss and go, right, if Carlton had a little bit more composure gone in the final third against Collingwood, Durden wouldn't have turned it over twice. Carlton would have won that game. You look at the Demons game. You're like, right, if Carlton didn't allow that stoppage deep inside their final third and actually cleared their lines and took that wing mark, that game's wrapped. Now you're bringing it down to 1, 2, 3 key moments that are fixable, where before it was like literally, oh God, hopefully Sauce gets 25 picks, builds a new list. Hopefully we sack Teague. Now you're actually a proper team where you can say it's 1%. And if these boys haven't learned by coming back early, well, I'll be questioning the players. Why did you come back early? You might as well stay in Bali. If you haven't if Durden hasn't recreated that kick 600 hours in the last 6 months, well, what's he doing?
No, I tend to agree. And, you know, we can sit here and talk about it all we want, and we will. We'll continue doing it. But now we probably need to see it. Like this is, I think in my whole Carlton life, in the 28 years that I have supported this club, I think this is going into 2023 is the first time where I'm in my mind going, it just has to, like, it just has to be. We talk about it every year and we fill ourselves with hope, and even during the Bolton days where we try and build ourselves up and go, oh yeah, we can finish 9th or 10th and be there at the end of, like, no, this isn't about that anymore. This is about, like, how far can this club now go? Like, we need to break the shackles because it's there. You can feel it on game day. You can feel it where you're like, give us something today to show us that you can win a flag. It's not about making finals. Give us a moment where it's, or a quarter against Sydney, where it's like you put that together for 4 quarters and we're unstoppable. Like, no one gets close. So it's gonna be such a. I say I'm not emotional now, and I'm not. I'm pretty calm, but I know that once the season starts, it is going to be an emotional year, one way or the other. We're either going to be riding the biggest high, or it's going to be the biggest low. And for another year, I'm all in, mate. All in, and I'm all in with confidence for the first time, thinking I don't think we're going to get hurt again. I think we're going to be there in September. Don't book any holiday plans. Like, lock us in week 1 of finals, lock us in week 2, and then off we go.
Mate, I'm with you. I don't know why. I've got like a Rangers feeling about this year. I know we're top 2. So with Rangers, we're always top 2. With Carlton, we're top 6. I know it's going to be. My apprehension is how high in that 6 are we? Are we second? Are we minor premiers? That's where my apprehension excitement is. But like, my brain is like 6th is the minimum. We're going to be 6th. Yep. So worst case, I'm going to be like, oh, we only get 1 shot at finals. That sucks. But that's how my mind is working. So, like, genuinely, I probably won't be excited about finals because my mind is actually just cemented there now, because it has to be. Like, you can be pessimistic, you can be negative. If you don't think the side is finals, what are you watching? Is my question. Like, and what is the point of the last 7 years of this rebuild?
Agree. It's a good note to finish on. And like I said the other week, we say this now, and I can already see the TikToks. I can already see the Instagram reels of you and me going, oh, we're not going to get hurt again. And the sad violin music over the top. Like, ugh. Anyway, it's a good note to finish on. Mate, I appreciate you joining me today. For all the viewers, for the first time I can say that, and the listeners, you'll see more of myself, Dan, and Jules next year on Blue Broad. The podcast will be back either 2nd or 3rd week of Feb. This is an impromptu ep. I do thank Pommy again for joining me. And until next year, Merry Christmas, mate. Happy New Year. And up the baggers.
Up the baggers, mate. Merry Christmas.